So I have the privilege of introducing our speakers, and we have three of them today. Begin with, I'm very proud to introduce Alicia Beachland. She's a highly accomplished professional and experienced individual as Vice President of Operation in the field of UAS, that's Unmanned Aircraft Systems. When you hear that again, you'll hear it quite a bit today. She's responsible for UAS engagement, innovation, and cultural acceptance. With a dedicated mission to enhance UAS safety and security, Lisa has played a pivotal role in assisting industry, commercial entities, military, government agencies, local communities, public safety, and academia. Her FAA Port 107 certification as a commercial drone pilot further underscores her commitment to the industry, advancement, and safety. In this capacity, she has demonstrated exceptional leadership and organization skills in overseeing the various critical aspects of the company operation. Alicia coordinates with the Air Boss team to ensure that all aspects of UAS demonstrations, training, and events occur with precision and pre-coordination. Moreover, she has made significant contribution to business development and company strategic processes. Additionally, we have Jack McNally. He comes with a deep-rooted passion for unmanned systems and commitment to advancing drone technology. Jack is an experienced UAS professional specializing in flight operations, instruction, and airspace management. Currently serving at Xelevate, Jack plays a critical role in the shaping of the future of drone integration through strategic planning, curriculum development, and complex UAS operations. Bringing a solid academic foundation, Jack holds a Master's in Science of Unmanned Systems from Embry-Riddle Aeronautics University, May of 2024, and a Bachelor of Science in Unmanned Aircraft Systems. With extensive hand-on experience culminating in over 730 flight hours. At Xelevate, Jack ensures safety and efficiency in drone operations, serving as an air boss and overseeing multiple domain unmanned systems, from managing flight schedules and coordinating airspace operation to briefing clients on FAA regulation. Jack is instrumental in maintaining safety and compliance in high-stake environments. Finally, and not at all last, is Colin Hively. Colin is a skilled UAS operational professional with extensive experience in managing and overseeing unmanned aircraft systems flight operations. As an air boss of Xelevate, Colin plays a critical role in ensuring the safety, efficiency, and compliant execution of complex UAS missions. With a strong background in airspace coordination, flight scheduling, and FAA regulatory compliance, Colin is responsible for maintaining the visual control of all aircraft within Xelevate's airspace, enforcing safety protocols, and optimizing flight patterns to prevent collisions. His experience extends to supervising ground crews and many air bosses, ensuring seamless multi-domain operation and adapting to the evolving UAS challenges with strategic problem-solving skills. As an FAA certified pilot 107 remote pilot, Colin has accumulated over 1,000 flight hours and has operated various unmanned platforms. Please welcome our speakers. I'll turn it over to Elisa.
Thank you for that, Georgia. That was very nice of you to introduce us. And also thank you for asking us to speak to the Committee for DOLS today. I think at Xelevate, more and more every day, we are constantly educating people, teaching people about drones, trying to get the word out to the public so they can understand it. Today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what drones are being used for. Also talk about the U.S. drone manufacturers and why it's important to have U.S.-made drones. And then we will also talk about the drone industry trends moving forward. And we will also discuss a little bit about the recent news with all the drone sightings and the panic and chaos that that ensued after those sightings. And lastly, we'll just kind of wrap it up with, what Xelevate is doing to support the unmanned systems industry, and what we are doing moving forward with industry and government and military. So I'm going to pass it over to Colin, and Colin is going to talk a little bit about the drone uses first.
Yep. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through here and talk about some different drone use cases. I'll give some examples of each drone use case. So here's the first slide here. So drone uses. So employment opportunities and industry use cases. The unmanned systems market is not only growing, but is positively impacting hundreds of industries worldwide who are increasingly adopting this technology due to the scalability, efficiency, and productivity it provides. All right, so the first use case we'll go through is drone swarms.
Oops, sorry.
So drone swarms are pretty much multiple drones operating together in a coordinated and autonomous manner. These drones use real-time communication and AI-driven decision-making to complete complex tasks more efficiently. So some examples of this would be, let's say you have a search and rescue operation and you need to cover large areas very quickly to locate, let's say you're locating like a missing person. You would use a drone swarm. You would bring up a bunch of drones and have them go through wherever you're wanting them to go through so they can find somebody. So that would be kind of like an example of a drone swarm there. Another example would be, let's say like drone agriculture. So you're spraying fertilizers over kind of vast agricultural fields. And then lastly, a very popular use case would be drone light shows. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but drone light shows are becoming very popular in the entertainment industry. So that's an excellent use case for drone swarms. All right, next we have military. So of course, the military are using drones. They're doing a lot of practicing with drones. So they're doing them you have loitering munitions. So that's drones acting as guided missiles, allowing for precision strikes. Obviously, that's very popular overseas right now. You also have drones with heavy lift cargo drones for transporting equipment. That's also extremely popular. The military is also heavily involved with counter UAS. So that's kind of using equipment to jam or disable hostile drones. So that's another very popular use case. All right, so we have ISR. So ISR is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So drones allow for real-time aerial intelligence and target tracking. Right now, the CBP and Border Patrol are using this very heavily over the southern border right now. That's where they're using ISR technologies. All right, food delivery. Food delivery is becoming extremely popular, and it's delivering kind of fast, efficient, and contactless delivery services. Although it's not food, Amazon and a company called Zipline, they're delivering packages with drones right now in certain cities. All right, so we have asset inspection. So this is kind of taking drones and inspecting kind of construction areas. You have oil and gas pipelines, dams, bridges, roads, mines, kind of all of those construction areas where they're actually taking drones and they're providing 3D maps of those areas. Now they can use this for maintenance, for assessing damages. So that's kind of what they're using for drones in asset inspection right now. All right, so precision ag. So this is probably one of the more popular areas that drones are being used, especially across the country, where you just have large amounts of fields. So drones are transforming the way we do agriculture. Drones, they carry what's called multispectral payloads or sensors, and that kind of allows for a more effective method for monitoring crop health. Drones are also being used to seed and plant large fields. So in some regions, these drones are being used to plant, I think it's hundreds of trees per minute. So you can put a lot of seeds down very quickly with the use of drones, kind of, other than previous methods. So yeah, they're very popular with agriculture right now.
Can you tell them about like the map where it shows the
Yeah,
red
yeah.
and the green?
So that's so a couple pictures here. So you have the map on the left there. It's kind of showing an image of all the hot spots on the field. So that's real. That's what these drones are doing. So they're taking these imagery of these fields with these multispectral cameras, and that allows them to find hot spots in a field. So if you can see a part of a field where it may not be getting enough water, so that's where drones are being used to kind of survey and assess these large fields so you can get water to where it's needed most. That's really popular. All right, the next one is chemical smeller. So this is really cool. So these drones they use sensors to detect potential hazards like toxic gas leaks, or let's say emissions from industrial sites, contamination in large bodies of waters. So these drones actually have sensors on them that go out and can detect that sort of thing. So it's kind of making industrial areas much safer because of that. Disaster relief. So this is another really popular area where drones are being used. They're being used for, let's say, damage assessments. So let's say there's wildfires and you need to kind of assess the damage of that area. That's where drones can come in. You can put a drone up. They give you that real-time data, so you can see exactly how bad the situation is. They also can be used for supply delivery. So let's say you need to get a case of waters to someone that's stuck in a certain area. You can do that. You can deliver goods with drones, kind of in harder places to reach, harder places where you couldn't reach with other methods. That's where drones are being used for disaster relief. They also give you that real-time data collection and communication.
Yeah, and in North Carolina, just being partnered with NCDOT, that when they did have those floods there, they did deploy drones to help assess the situation, figure out what roads were inaccessible, and just locating people. And the drone technologies that they used, varied from mapping and thermal drones, things like that as well, because they all show different things that you're looking for, whether it's people, whether it's topography, things like that. The drones that were used all kind of work together to help them better assess the situation.
So the next one is weather sensing, thermal imaging, and forest firefighting. So that's kind of similar to the slide before with that disaster relief. But weather sensing is crucial. We've actually had this drone on site flying. Pretty much what it is they're putting these weather sensors on the drones themselves, flying them up to a certain altitude, and then getting that kind of precise and accurate data that you really couldn't before. So that's kind of one way that's being used in like the weather side of things in that industry. It's just providing better, accurate, and more precise data, especially to a local area where we can kind of get the benefit from that micro weather. And that's again, that's really important when we're flying drones, and flying general aviation as a whole. Weather is extremely important. So drones are also helping in providing that weather data. So that's how they're being used for that.
Yeah, and weather is really important as well. Obviously, if you're familiar with the aviation industry, if you know exactly what is happening with the weather more accurately, it reduces the downtime. Just like it does for flying airplanes, the same thing with drones. We can't just put drones up in the air when it's raining or windy, things like that. We have to really know precisely what the weather's going to be like. So these weather sensing drones assist with that as well.
Yep.
And then the other image is the forest firefighting. and I don't know if you all saw in the news, but one of those drones was damaged by somebody just putting a drone up in the air being nosy. So again, this is why it's so important that people understand, when there is a disaster or something going on, don't just put your drone up in the air. You could be interfering with things that are really there to being implemented to help people. So this is why it's important to get that education out there about the drone technologies.
Yep. And then the last one is organ delivery. So this is really crucial. So drones are saving lives. They're providing what's called, I believe it's the last mile delivery. So that's when kind of that last mile drones are being used to then deliver that organ to the hospital. So that's providing more of a kind of a faster way of delivering the organs, and it's more efficient. So you can be, let's say in your car, you have traffic. Yeah, you can use your drone to just kind of bypass all of that. So that's kind of the last use case that's being used right now in the industry. And then I'll quickly kind of go over this slide here. So this is the commercial drone use per industry and method. So this just kind of shows what's popular and where drones are being used in all of the industries as a whole, and kind of where they're at currently. So if you look at the image here, obviously the most popular areas, you have delivery, photography and filming, inspection, and mapping and surveying. So those are kind of the areas that drones are extremely popular right now. But as you can see, it spreads across this whole image. So drones can be used in almost any industry. And as the years progress, especially like 4 years ago, it was totally different. We're like actively finding places that drones can be used.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember is drones are not taking somebody's job. You still need somebody to operate them, and that person just needs to, get their FAA Part 107 license and learn how to operate the drone. And honestly, it makes jobs safer. Inspecting bridges, people don't have to climb up, anymore. Even cleaning windows on these high-rise buildings, they can send drones up to do that now instead of people, dangling from the building. So there's a lot of opportunity to make jobs safer for people, as opposed to, the thought process that drones are going to take over people's jobs. One thing I think that we stress here at Xelevate is don't rely on the autonomy. A lot of these drone manufacturers are like, oh, you can't crash this drone. It's got every, bell and whistle and all that stuff. And we see it a lot out here.
Yeah.
we see the drone failures happen out here. So for us, we stress, get that hands-on training, get that muscle memory, because at the end of the day, even if that autonomous, AI is controlling the drone, if something goes wrong, you're going to have to know how to take it over and bring it down safely. So we do stress the importance of getting that muscle memory and learning how to use the drone. There we go. Okay. I'm going to take this one.
Yep, so I'll take this one. So here's a list of some US drone manufacturers, some really popular ones. Again, this isn't all of them, but this is kind of the majority of them. So I'll kind of quickly run down the list here. So on one side, we have the enterprise and commercial focused American drone companies. And then on the other side, we have the US military and defense focused drone companies. So we have Ag Eagle. They were formerly SenseFly. We have American Robotics. They're the parent company is, I think it's Ondas Holdings. We have Ascent Aerosystems, Brink, Dragonfly. We have FlightWave Aerospace, FreeFly, Impossible Aerospace. Their parent company is Alpine 4 Holdings. We have Inspired Flight Technologies. They're out of California. We have Skyfish, UAV America, Vision Aerial, and Wing Expand. And then for the military, we have Alt Avian. Their parent company is Teledyne FLIR. Teledyne FLIR is another huge company in this industry. We have Blue Halo, Easy Aerial, Skydio, Teal. They're partnered with Red Cat. We have Vantage Robotics. Neros is another kind of smaller up and coming company that's working with the U.S. military in the defense. So these are kind of a good number of companies that are kind of American backed and working in the industry right now. The one unfortunate part about all of this is there's no consumer section on this page. So a lot of the drones right now that are American made and American backed, they're only built for commercial drones or enterprise solutions, or they're partnered with the military. There's really no consumer example. Skydio used to have a consumer example for their drones, but I believe it was last year they stopped selling them on the consumer market. So right now there's really nothing. So that's why, you know, we need more American-backed companies kind of building these drones for the consumer market as well.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the DJIs and how.
Yeah, so DJI is, I mean, DJI probably owns over 70% of the market right now in terms of their drones. If you don't know, DJI is a Chinese company. They're kind of the industry leading company right now that's building and selling drones. At least for the commercial market here, you know, 60-70% of the time, you're going to see a company that's going to be flying DJI equipment. And again, it's not American made. We do not lead this industry. It's really DJI and in China. They're the ones that are really leading this industry right now, and that's really
Colin, I have a question. Richard Carey here.
Yeah, go ahead.
These manufacturers, are they working out of their garages, or do they have facilities?
Some of them do.
Where are their locations?
Yeah, so they're really located across the United States. You have companies like Inspired Flight, Skydio. They're located on the East Coast or the West Coast. They're larger companies. They'll have kind of industrial buildings they're not just working out of the garages. You have some other companies like you have Neros. They're smaller. You know, I don't know if they're working out of a garage, but they're definitely a smaller company that's up and coming. Some of these companies are backed by venture capitalists. Some of these companies aren't. So that's kind of the state of where they're at.
Do you know the annual sales of drones in this country by all these manufacturers?
I do not. I don't believe I have an accurate number for that.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of the US drone manufacturers, we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of them go out of business. There's not enough funding and not enough federal backing to help these companies really push this American innovation forward. So that's why, you know, part of what we do at Xelevate, you know, Marcy and Andy, our owners, they go down to Washington, D.C., and they educate and explain to, you know, our senators and people in the government that, you know, this is something that needs to happen. It's necessary. We need to support these companies. We need to help push this American innovation forward, especially from a national security perspective. Having American-made drones is incredibly important. Because the Chinese drone can be easily taken over by anybody right home.
Yeah.
And hacking into
they
it.
can.
So one quick last question about maintenance. How often do they have to be maintained, and who usually does it?
So so every manufacturer is going to have a different protocol for their maintenance and how often you will need to maintain the bird. Usually it's every, you know, let's say 50 hours of flight time. This one we'll bring the drone in and maintain it. There's little things that need to be maintained, like the props. They'll be, you know, props will go out quicker than that, but each drone will have its different kind of maintenance protocol, just like in general aviation as well.
Yeah, and we do have pre-flight checklists that the air bosses use anytime, before you fly. They go through that checklist. Obviously, you always want to inspect the exterior of the drone, make sure there's no broken or deformed parts, things like that. Maybe Colin, if you want to expand a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll every time we fly, and it's pretty industry standard. You'll go through a pre-flight brief or pre-flight check. Sorry. Well, you kind of overview the drone. You look at it, make sure everything's working the way it should be. Some of these companies they'll bring out just a packet this big that they'll have to go through, and they'll kind of overview for the flight, and that kind of prevents any accidents while you're in the air, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah, Colin, this is Logan and Antigone here, and Elisa. So is the consumer? How do I want to ask this? You're saying the Chinese companies are dominating the consumer segment. Is it because of cost or because of technology or both?
Both, but mainly cost as well. Our technology's it's up there, but the technology does drive the cost too. So I'd say it's mainly cost.
Well, so what's the decision that the consumer has to make? Is there a $200 Chinese drone and the equivalent version in the American is $300, or does America not even have an equivalent version? So you got to pay a premium for an inferior version, or where's the choice lay for the consumer?
So when Skydio was making their consumer drone, you had a choice, but back when they were doing that, the Skydio was like 2 times as expensive. So whereas the DJI, you could get a DJI for maybe $1,000, the Skydio I think came in at $2,500. So it was over twice the price, at least on the consumer market. But Skydio, last year they dropped their consumer market, so now there really is no alternative for an American.
Well, so like iPhones get made in China or other places overseas. So where are they each making? Did the American version have its components actually being made soup to nuts in America, or
No.
were they just buying the same underlying components from China that DJI uses, and then we just paying a premium to assemble them domestically? Or I'm trying to understand where in the supply chain the cost and the differentiators kick in.
It was so Skydio. So I believe Skydio wasn't using any Chinese equipment. They were getting it all alternative methods. Like a lot of parts were made in Taiwan, parts were made in Europe, and then it would be assembled in the United States. So that's kind of how they were doing it. And because of that, sourcing the parts there in those locations, that is what drove the cost up as well. Yeah.
But the long and short of it, they're gathering data well, when you buy it from the Chinese, you can be sure they're getting your information.
Yep.
That's the rub. Okay, I'm sorry.
So is there a path to changing that here, or the dynamics here so fundamental that there's no reason that we're going to be able to change this anytime soon?
I mean, I think that there is more of a push, especially within the U.S. Military and defense industry, to get these companies to continue to, keep producing this kind of stuff on U.S. land. And again, it really is a matter of educating, getting people to understand why this is so important. And then also being able to help these companies manufacture. We are friends with people that have smaller companies, and they're starting to use the 3D printers, things like that to kind of get around making certain parts. But then there are other parts that they're on wait lists for. So, it's really a matter of a lot of different things as far as funding, getting access to parts, things like that.
So is it fundamentally a private sector or a government challenge here? Who needs to, does the government simply need to subsidize this to get things going, or does the private sector just need to wake up and do a better job?
It's
Both.
It's really both. I would say. It's yeah, both are kind of the issue there. It's also legislation. So legislation needs to kind of approve that manufacturing process. But yeah, it's both private and kind of government.
So do certain commercial ones or enterprise ones target specific uses? So like, are they like one of these like Dragonfly? Do they really hone in on a certain area? So like if you wanted to be involved in some of this, do you have to go to different manufacturers for different uses? And there you have like many different drones.
Yep.
Like a fire department might need it for water drop,
Yep.
you know, like surveying, you know, different things. Do you have to have lots of different manufacturers then?
So you're
Yeah.
talking about features of the drone that would be specific to the industry that needs it, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, That's correct.
Yeah, there's definitely drones made specifically for agriculture. There's drones made specifically for mapping. There's, definitely different types of drones.
And there are manufacturers that specialize in those areas.
Yes.
Yep.
So I suggest we go, because they've got quite a bit more in their PowerPoint, and because we
Oh,
do
okay.
have a Q&A. It's okay to ask questions, but just because I don't want us to not be able to finish the PowerPoint.
Yeah, and we can come back to this at the end of.
Yeah, if you want to take notes or write your questions down, please.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the drone industry trends. I'm going to pass this over to Jack, and he can go through some of the evolution of the drone industry trends coming soon.
Thank you very much for that. So we'll start out with some regulatory advancements. Governments worldwide are updating regulations to support beyond visual line of sight, also known as BV loss operations, autonomous flights, drone deliveries, that'll expand to commercial applications. So I just saw a news article came from UK. They invested about 300 million into drone regulations and advancements for drone deliveries around there. Next, we have AI and autonomy. Drones are becoming more autonomous with AI-driven navigation, object detection, and decision-making, reducing the need for human pilots. Over the past few years, AI has improved vastly in UAS, and it's making improvements every day. And we've been able to notice the trends following with all the drones that are coming out on the market. So next we have urban air mobility, UAM, push toward drone taxis and eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, integrate drones into urban transportation. So you can imagine a mini helicopter that can carry about 4 people from rooftop to rooftop in a busy city. You can hop in, fly across from building to building instead of having to go out, call a taxi, and do it that way. Next, we have improved battery technology, longer flight times, more efficient power sources, such as hydrogen fuel cells and advancing lithium batteries, also known as LiPo batteries, will enhance drone capabilities. So we've been able to see flight time going from 20 minutes up to 40 minutes just on the same size battery, but just the technology behind it has improved drastically. We also have integration with 5G, faster connectivity will allow real-time data transfer, making drones more effective for industries like agricultural, infrastructure inspection, and emergency response. With 5G, it also allows us to be farther flight distances and quicker response time. Next, like Paul was saying earlier, we have swarm technology becoming more popular in the past few years. So coordinated drone swarms can be used for applications like search and rescue, military operations, and large-scale surveying. And like Paul also said, there are the light shows that have become very popular in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, and with the 5G, why that's really important is the data. All these drones are getting data. So you will see that there are companies that have these 5G trucks, and they'll put the drones up in the air, get a map of, especially like in a disaster relief, type of situation, they'll get a map of the area, and then that drone will transmit that data, with the fast connectivity, and they can get, real-time information. So the 5G with the drone integration is really, really important for a lot of the emergency response stuff.
Also have expansion in delivery services. Companies like Amazon, Zipline, scaling up drone deliveries, making them more common for medical supplies, food, and consumer goods. Zipline has been making large improvements with this. They have been testing for the past 10 years, but now have become more relevant in the market right now with their medical supplies. We also have counter drone solutions. As drones become more widespread, counter drone technologies will evolve to prevent unauthorized or malicious drone use in sensitive areas. This is very important because drones become more popular and not everyone is educated, and they could be doing some malicious activities which they should not be doing, and so a good counter drone solution is needed because there's always going to be some bad things out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of counter UAS systems, the drone technology systems. You'll see them being used, for example, like at NFL football games, because people are trying to fly their drones, over the stadium, which is completely illegal. So these technologies can find these drones, and they can notify the authorities and get these people to get away from the stadiums. Usually they get fined or jail time, depending on how severe the infraction is.
At the end of it, we have customization and specialization. Drones can be increasingly designed for niche applications, from firefighting and environmental monitoring to archaeological surveys and wildlife conservation. So if we look over on the map, that is a snippet from a LiDAR. So LiDAR is great because it is light detection and range. It's able to pierce through a treetop and survey the ground from underneath. So you'll be able to look at, the dig site before actually having to go through and do all the work. You'll be able to penetrate through top of those trees to see the floor. Next, we have public perception and safety. Efforts will focus on addressing privacy, noise, pollution, safety concerns to ensure smoother integration into society. So if we can get the public to realize, hey, drones aren't always bad, they're out helping out with, the local law enforcement. Not every single drone up in the air is taking pictures of you and posting pictures online. No, there's much better things out there that they're doing, and most likely that's what they're doing. And it's just having the public accept them.
Thanks, Jack. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the drone sighting controversy. that we got a lot of phone calls about it during that time. So in New Jersey, it was on the news everywhere. There was people taking pictures and showing videos and all kinds of stuff on social media, talking about these drones flying over their houses, and there was a lot of panic and concern. But the good thing is it has caused awareness that yes, drones are out there. So now we need to educate people about drone safety and the good uses for drones, because again, like we said, there are many situations where drones are saving lives. They're preventing people from getting into accidents. They're just making people's jobs safer. So if you do have a drone and you really want to learn about all the rules and regulations around drones, getting your FAA Part 107 remote pilot certification will help you understand the laws and safety around drones. If you are using a drone just for fun, you don't necessarily need to get your remote pilot certification. But once you start using drones for business purposes, you will need to get your FAA Part 107 pilot certification. At Xelevate, we can help you guys if you are interested in learning how to do that. We can kind of help you through the process, direct you to the right classes, and get you on your way. We usually tell people, go get your Part 107 and then come back for the hands-on, because that's really what is needed, is to get that hands-on experience. Right now, there is no hands-on requirement for getting your Part 107. So it's not like your driver's license where you have to have so many hours logged and then you can get your license. You can just study for the test and take the test. So I think in the future, they may change that a little bit, especially as, you know, the utilization of drones continues to increase. But as of now, it's really just studying for the test and passing the test. So we tell people, come here, get your practice here. You can learn how to safely deploy your drone, make sure you're following all the rules and not flying over people, things like that. So a lot of the questions that we got when all the drone sightings happened is how do you distinguish between a drone and other aerial vehicles? And because some of the pictures online, if you are on social media, people were posting pictures of airplanes or, you know, helicopters, and they really weren't drones. In what was in the video. So so there are a few things you can look for. Number one is the size and height of flying. So drones tend to be much smaller in size. Generally, most of the drones are under 55 pounds. And legally, you can only operate a drone up to 400 feet. So it's not going to be way up there in the sky like an airplane would be or a helicopter would be. So when you're looking at something in the sky and you're worried about whether it's a drone or not, look at the size and the height of how the drone is flying. The other thing is movements. Drones are really agile. They can hover in place, they can move vertically, make quick correctional changes, and they can also fly backwards. So you're not going to see that with an airplane or a helicopter. So look at the movement as well. The other thing is sounds. Drones emit a distinct buzzing or whirring noise because of their small propellers. And usually at higher altitudes, drones are kind of quiet, unless it's like a, you know, gas powered drone. We've heard those up in the air, but generally their drones are kind of quiet. The other thing is the flight patterns. Drones kind of fly in an erratic and repetitive pattern. There's either circling, hovering in one spot, or zigzagging. Whereas, you know, planes, they usually have a trajectory of where they're going, and they're going to stay in that trajectory. I can't talk today. And lastly is the lights. Drones have small LED lights that may blink or change colors. They're usually red, green, or white, and the lights are typically closer together. Whereas the, you know, airplanes are going to have more flashing lights. They have their anti-collision lights, navigation lights, things like that. So those are just some of the things you can look for if you're really concerned, you know, that there's a drone flying over you. Take a look at those characteristics. So if there is a drone flying over you or over your house and you're concerned about it, what do you do? I know on social media, people are like, I'm going to just shoot it down out of the sky. Well, that's illegal. You can't do that. Interfering or taking anything down out of the sky is very illegal. And it's also very dangerous. You could hurt somebody. It could crash into a house. You know, you can damage people's property. So you don't want to do that. The blades on the drone can also cut people. And if you really don't know what that drone is doing, it could be transporting an organ for somebody. And now you've just interrupted, what the drone is doing. So call the police if you are concerned, let them know there's a drone up in the air that is suspicious. The other thing too is there's several different ADS-B apps on your phone that you can download very easily, and they're free. And these ADS-B apps, there's a picture over here, will kind of show you, okay, these are airplanes up in the sky. We'll even identify them. So you can kind of determine, okay, if it's not in the area that I'm looking at, maybe I do need to contact the authorities and see what's going on. So as a reminder, drones are doing a lot of good in this country. Don't just assume that because the drone is flying over you, it's spying on you. There's a lot of good reasons that drones are up in the air right now, and they are helping people to be safer on the job. All right, so what is Xelevate doing to assist in all of this? So at Xelevate, we have physical locations. One is here in Leesburg, Virginia. It's a 66-acre farm, and we can fly Class 1 and 2 drones out here. In Washington, North Carolina, we are based at the Washington Warren Airport, and it is a larger facility where we can fly Class 1 through 5 out there. And then recently, we just opened a facility in partnership with Tennessee Valley Authority, and it's a government facility on a nuclear reactor facility. The facility is called Bellefonte Nuclear Reactor, and don't worry, I did my due diligence. There's no active radiation there. There was never any radiation. That facility never became functional, and our U.S. tax money pays to just maintain it, and they just never really were able to get through the legal, political, system to be able to get that facility up and running. So we got introduced to the leadership out there, and they really wanted Xelevate to utilize that area. So now we are able to operate drones out there, which is very important, especially for government and industry, to be able to test and train at a facility with such critical infrastructure right there. So that is our facility out in Hollywood, Alabama. And then coming soon, we're still in the legal paperwork process, but there is it's really mostly land, and it is a bare bones facility coming in Luray, Virginia. There's a lot of mountainous tree areas, and it is a great location for industry, government, military to come out and test and train and complete missions out there as well. And Xelevate supports all of that. So all these facilities were specifically selected because of the class of drones you can fly there, the complex environments. Some of the facilities have air, land, sea, cyber, and some of them are, bare bones. So we're very selective about, if somebody does reach out to us and say, hey, can you set up an Xelevate here? We kind of take a look at how is this going to help with, real life situations, real life demonstrations. Because a lot of times these companies will be out in the middle of the desert testing things, and there's no storms there, there's no water, there's no rain. So really, you're not going to learn about your technology unless you're in varied environments. So Xelevate is here to support all of that. We help companies do their testing. Companies can train their people out here, or we can also train their people if they bring them here. We also do demonstration events at Xelevate. We've done large scale events where American industry and I should say American allies also come. We've had companies from Australia and Switzerland come out here and demonstrate their technology for the government, for the military, for the police force. And we can also do real life scenario based exercises out here. So I know I was talking to George about this before. One of the government agencies, they deal with medical triaging, any war areas. So they dress people up and put, you know, blood and fake body parts coming out of their bodies, and had them laying all over one of our fields, and then the drone went up and triaged. Hey, you know, when you do a medical triage, it's like, okay, these people are most critical. This person, you know, has an amputation. This person, you know, has just some surface wounds. So they can triage these people so that they can get the appropriate help out to them. So very interesting stuff that the government and the military is doing with drone technology. We are recognized experts. We get a lot of calls for consulting, and we like to help industry connect with the military and the government so that they can get the correct technologies. Unfortunately, we've seen government agencies, they just procure 10 drones and they don't do what they need them to do for their mission. So when we talk to some of these agencies and the military, they explain to us, like, this is our end goal, this is what we're looking for, and then we can kind of help them connect with the right technologies so that we're lessening that waste of money that is just being spent on products that they don't really need and don't really work for their specific mission. So the owners of Xelevate are fully cleared. They've worked in national security for 20 plus years, and several of our employees, including myself, have supported national security. So that is something that is in our hearts, and we want to continue to support. We also have a US focused ecosystem, so we partner with a lot of industry that is all US based, and we network them. We do collaboration with them, help some companies integrate technologies with each other as well. And we just try to help solve problems that come up every day between, you know, government, military, and industry. So not only do we support tech sourcing, like I said, Marcy and Andy are down in DC supporting policy, procedures, supporting agencies, or I shouldn't say organizations that are basically down there with the legislators and trying to help people understand this type of mission and what needs to happen. So that's basically what Xelevate is. Yes, we have physical locations, but we also have the expertise and understand the technology. And every day we learn something new here every day. So even though we say, hey, you know, we're supposedly recognized experts, we know that things change so much. Legislation changes. We try to follow it as best as we can. We try to stay connected with all of our technology partners, try to understand, you know, all their technology and all the changes and how things are evolving. So we really try to keep a pulse on all that stuff, and we are here to help in any way we can to move the US technology forward. The other thing that is really, really important, and I think we talk about it a lot, and I'm sure you probably heard the word safety like 1,000 times in all three of our bios, but Xelevate has standard operating procedures and protocols that are strictly followed. we are part of the FAST team. We work with the FAA. We are partnered with the FAA. And we try to minimize risk and create safe environments for industry to fly in. And that is a big piece of what we do. And we do know that there are people, I shouldn't say people, but companies that are doing technology testing that is illegal. It's really illegal. And they shouldn't be doing it. So if you have these operating procedures in place and call in the Airboss team if there's any waivers or COAs or anything that is outside of that, you know, Part 107 box, they can help deconflict that kind of stuff and get people. We try to say, how do we get to a yes, right? So we want to do everything safely, minimize the risk, but they kind of want to do something a little crazy, right? So, so how do we get to that yes safely? And you know, usually it's just collaborating and brainstorming with the Airboss team and their team, and then we can get them to accomplish what they need to accomplish by minimizing that risk and creating that safe environment. So that's really a big piece, another big piece of what Xelevate does. And you know, happy to be here and support the Committee for Dulles as well. All right. So Georgia sent us some questions, but if you want, we can open up questions to you guys first, and then we can address some of her questions as well.
May I ask a question about range? When you said it's 400 feet, so in a more volatile, let's say, a combat situation, so that you're going to have somebody not too far away from where that drone is operating it, correct?
So are you talking about the
person who actually is controlling the drone, how they cannot.
So right now, your drone must be within eyesight, right? So I don't know if you guys want to explain beyond visual line of sight and visual line of sight.
Yeah.
to them.
So
Yeah.
we have to operate, I guess, under Part 107 legally, without waivers. We have to operate what's called by visual line of sight. So that means when we're operating our drones, when we're flying them, we have to fly them. We can only fly them as far out as we can see with unaided vision. So we can't be using binoculars or anything like that. So we have to keep it within our line of sight. The moment you can't see the drone anymore, or it's behind something, or it's obstructed, you have to bring it back to you, because that is technically operating beyond visual line of sight. Beyond visual line of sight, or BV loss, is kind of like the next step within the drone industry right now as far as regulation goes. So that's kind of what the FAA is trying to kind of come up with, you know, in a legislative way right now in the industry, so that people can fly beyond the visual line of sight. So you can fly farther than what your vision can see. So that's kind of where we're at in the industry. You can do BV loss or beyond visual line of sight operations. You just need the correct FAA waiver to do so.
So people in a war zone, are they required? They're not required the same distance. They probably, it's much.
Yeah. They wouldn't be operating under Part 107 in those operations. Now, when they come out and they need to train, let's say the military comes out and trains at a commercial site like Xelevate, then they must operate under 107. So that's where that comes into play. But yeah, you can. Yeah, it's Part 107, which is the you know, legal way to fly commercially in the U.S. here. That's what restricts you to that line of sight flying.
What is the real distance someone could manage a drone? How far? And let's say,
And keep it within sight.
Well-
Yeah, it kind of depends on the size. So if the drone is really big, obviously if it goes farther out, it's gonna be easier to see. But I mean, we usually stay within a mile of where we're flying. We never really fly farther than a mile out.
so if somebody is trying, like if there was a situation in Ukraine and a drone from Russia came, how realistically far could that drone be from the person or operating that drone? Is it? Is it many more miles? I mean, does it still have to, where does the break point occur?
So it obviously it does depend on what that drone manufacturer is and who and how and what the technology is on board that drone. But we've seen companies advertise from 5 miles to 30, 40 miles.
Wow.
It really does range, especially when you get into kind of the commercial platforms where there's just they're very high tech. There's a lot of equipment on board the drone. There's a lot of different technologies that are being used to extend the range of the drone. So yeah, it's kind of within that range. I would say mostly you're dealing with platforms that are can operate, sub 5 miles away from you. That's kind of the typical range of these things. But yeah, I'd say, within 5 miles is pretty standard.
And just another example, when Skydio had their road show out here, we were able to actually have the controller of the drone, and they had the drone in a warehouse in California, and we were able to fly it here at Xelevate, fly that drone in California. So I don't know how that technology all works, but
Wow.
LTE. Yeah.
but it was very interesting that I could be here in Leesburg and fly a drone that was located in California, inside a warehouse, obviously,
Yeah.
because it's illegal to do it any other way, but.
It's good at least brought that up. So
Yeah.
that technology, that's kind of really popular too. That drone's using it's running off of like a 4G LTE or 5G cellular signal. So now you can operate the drone anywhere in the world as long as the drone has a cellular signal to it. You can get that connection there. So that's another huge piece of technology that's becoming more and more popular. So that's drones operating on like 4G LTE or 5G, any sort of kind of cellular link. That's what they're kind of operating on.
So if you're saying that some places in the country they are allowing packages to be delivered like by Amazon, I can't remember the name
Yeah.
of
Zipline, wing. Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of airspace do they allow to go into in a neighborhood? Isn't there some restrictions on dropping a package off at a consumer's house, or is it strictly a commercial type thing? I mean, I worry. Can you imagine going outside and seeing hundreds of drones in the air,
Yeah.
and then you
So,
have collisions all over the place? I mean,
yeah.
you would think.
Yeah. And those that's why those companies are doing it over very strategically located areas and cities. Like they're not operating over a vast city. It's a small section of like a suburban area. But what they're allowed to do that because it's a common misconception that people think when they say that, you own the airspace over your house. Unfortunately, you do not own the airspace over your house. Technically, the FAA owns it. So that's how they're able to kind of get through that and do those deliveries because the FAA you're operating in FAA airspace and you're not bound by the property owner over the houses. So that is kind of a common misconception that people think when they're thinking about these drones. They're like, how can you do that? They're going directly over these people's property. Well, technically, it's the FAA's airspace. So that's kind of how they're able to get around that. Now they have to, they are in a safe environment because again, it's kind of strategically located within a city is where their test bed is, and they're testing these certain neighborhoods. And they'll only allow only this many drones at a time, so that you don't have issues with drones colliding into other drones and things like that. So it's very kind of strategically placed and operated right now, and they have to do that because the FAA is putting regulations down so that they can do that. So it's not just like Amazon or Wing; they're not just going and doing this kind of wildly and on their own control. They're doing it being controlled by the FAA. So the FAA is the one that's putting all these regulations on these companies so that they can do this. So the FAA is really keeping a good eye out and making sure that none of these companies are being irresponsible. Because these companies are the ones that have to apply and put in the waivers to do this, to do these operations.
Well, it's I don't know, wild west.
It's crazy. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube you can watch for like the Amazon deliveries and watch the drones deliver everything. And it's all just it's a very small scale right now. Like they can only deliver, I think it's a 5 pound package. Right now is like their maximum, like the maximum weight of that package. So you think you're like, how is this efficient? They're only dropping these little tiny packages. But again, they're starting extremely small, and they almost have to because the FAA won't. The FAA is not going to allow Amazon to scale up until they can kind of get their confidence up within those operations. They only have 30 drones. Yeah. So Jack said they only have 30 drones right now. So it's a very small number, but it has to be that way in order for them to scale up.
I just worry about a drone all of a sudden appearing and hurting an individual.
Yeah.
If they can be managed from across the country, you don't even know where it came from and who did it. I mean, how can you possibly, how can our country, for example, how can they monitor this? It's almost impossible, I would think.
And there is technology being put in place to monitor it. The FAA, they put in what's called remote ID. So that's kind of a new regulation. It got passed last year. So every drone that's operating now needs to have what's called remote ID, which is it's kind of like I would, yeah, it's like ADS-B but for drones, or it's like kind of like your license plate in the sky. That's kind of how we like to refer to it. So it's this beacon that you put on your drone, and that's going to broadcast your drone's information so that I believe they have it specially set up so that, I mean, I think individuals like you and I can go and look on our phone and they can see that information that the drone is broadcasting out. But it also gives like police departments and like emergency management, they have information, special information where they can see that information as well. So if you have a drone that's acting in a bad manner, they can pull up their remote ID and see, okay, this is, you know, John's drone. You know, he's the owner of this. We're gonna, you know, we've caught the guy who's flying it. But of course, there's going to be bad actors all the time. There's going to be ways to get around that. But that's just one way that the FAA has kind of they've put that regulation in place, try to manage that a little bit.
So I've kind of taken too much time with questions. Anyone else have questions?
Georgia, I just wanted to make a comment because I need to run. I thought this presentation was excellent. Compliment Elisa, Colin, and Jack for their presentation. I think it's an industry that's wide open. I think you guys are at the threshold and at the forefront of all this, and wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone?
Hello, everyone. Hi, this is Howard Lancet. Colin, I have a question. I have a DJI Phantom 3 that I purchased a while ago. I want to start using it again. Is there a phone or iPad that I should be using or a remote on it? Or should I be looking at it at one of the newer drones? I want to use it for photographing real estate, and I live on the Chesapeake Bay, and I have a boat also, and I want to start having basically photographing or videotaping yachts or sailboats that are on the Chesapeake and using that as revenue.
Well, I'll tell you what, did you say you have a Phantom 3?
Correct.
It's still a really good platform. So if I would try and use that and start with that. I wouldn't get a whole different platform. That lineup with the DJI lineups with the Phantom is probably one of the most used commercial drones DJI's put out. They're a really solid platform, really reliable. So for the controller, you will have to find like a controller that's compatible with the Phantom 3. But I believe it's
This is
I believe the app that you would use, you can use an iPhone or I believe an iPad. I think it's DJI. It's DJI Go.
DJ Go.
It's DJI Go is the application that you would use to access the software to fly. There's a ton of information online, but I would try that first, see if it meets your business needs, and then I would do that before trying to get a different drone that might,
Okay.
it might very well meet your needs that you needed to do.
Now, I know that Alyssa had mentioned this also. I should probably take the class, the 107.
Yep.
When I learned my drone is registered with the FAA, I did that. And the reason I know that I'm still that I was registered a few years ago was because I went up and to an area to photograph some real estate with it, and it was really interesting. I went into an area where where I was able to put it up. And so I told the realtor, oh, I'll be able to go back tomorrow and really do the photographs and the video for you. Well, I went back the following day, and it turned out to be a no-fly zone for that particular day. So is there an app that I can look at or bring up to say what areas are a fly zone, or what areas may not be a fly zone for the next couple of days?
Yep, sure can. There's a bunch of resources that I personally use. I believe there's like 5 or 6 different applications that are approved by the FAA for doing like a airspace overview. The one I like to use is by a company called Aloft, and the platform is called Air Aware. So it's Air Aware by Aloft. If you put that into Google, you can. They have a browser version of it. You can, if you go on the website, it'll show you the browser interface. You just click into that, and then you can, essentially it's just a map of the United States that has all of the different airspace and in real time and what the airspace looks like. So you can find out, okay, where the temporary flight restrictions are, if it's covering your area, if it affects you, if it doesn't. It shows you kind of the nearest airports. It has a lot of good data
Okay.
that I say a Part 107 pilot needs to do before flying.
Okay.
It should be a requirement.
Taking the test for the 107. Is that something that I can read up on online, or is that something that where can I get that information to all the information I need to be able to take that test?
Yeah. So the Part 107, the test, there's a couple different ways you can do it. There's our website currently does have a, if you go on our website, you go under training. We do have a couple of different, I believe it's 2 different Part 107 courses that can help you go through the test. Essentially what it is the Part 107 test is just a test. It's a test at a FAA compliant facility. They're usually near airports. You go there and then you take the test. It's a 60 question multiple choice test. If you pass it, you get your 107. If you don't, you can retake it. That's all the Part 107 test is. Now, the only thing that the Part 107 test doesn't provide is all the materials and knowledge you need in order to take the test. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. So first, in order to take your test, you need to get the knowledge and the materials needed. You need to know all of that. So the first way would be you could do it all yourself. So you can go and look up all the regulations yourself and kind of do it that way and build out your own kind of course. Or you can pay to kind of go through a self-guided course online. That's probably the 90% of the people that I encourage to get their 107. They go this route because it's a course that's already designed and built for you. I took that course. I went through a company called Drone Pilot Ground School, or that was the course name was Drone Pilot Ground School. The company was UAV Coach. You've typed that into Google, it'll pop up.
Or you can go to our website too. We have the link right there.
Yeah, or you can go to our
Oh,
website.
is it right there? Okay.
Yep.
On our website.
Yep.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's on our website. It's under the training section of our website, and you'll find it down kind of the bottom of the page. So there's 2 different courses there. There's Drone Pilot Ground School, and then there's a company called Pilot Institute, and they have a 107 course. That's another really good course. Those are 2 of the kind of main ones that we always like to advertise out, just because they're tried and true, and they have a really good pass rate on them. I think Drone Pilot Ground School has like a 99% pass rate through their students. So it's almost all the students coming out of that course pass. And it's just the way that course is set up sets you up for success. So yeah, that's who I went through, and I'd give yourself a couple weeks to do it. I wouldn't kind of cram it all in one weekend. There's a lot of information on the test. It's pretty surprising. I mean, you get to learn all sorts of different things that you really wouldn't think you need. So you get to learn all about airports, you learn about weather, you learn about just a lot of aviation related things, a lot of airspace maps, all of that, flight charts. So it's a lot of good information, but it's a lot of information. So I usually tell everyone give yourselves like 2 to 3 weeks if you can to study for it, and you'll be set up.
Are there
Awesome.
any other questions from anyone else? Logan?
Yeah,
Marsh?
this is Logan. I'll ask them inquire here. A couple questions. One was what? Oh, well, one was, and the answer might be none, but if I wanted to buy a drone and didn't want to buy Chinese, what's the best option?
Chinese.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of them. I think
I know EXO. Still.
Exo drones. Yeah.
EXO.
So I think there's a company that's still creating them. It's called is it EXO drones or Exo drones? I believe they do have some consumer drones you can buy. You can
And they're
probably,
decent.
yeah, I've heard some good things about them. But I believe that's an American made platform. Good example. I always say Skydio. Unfortunately, Skydio dropped their consumer platform last year. You might be able to find one used though. I would even go and contact Skydio and ask them if they have one around. They very well might. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of true American backed platforms that are offered in the consumer market, and it's just
Okay.
Colin, I'm sorry, what's that called? Sky DO?
Skydio.
Yes.
Yep. So Skydio is a huge company. They are American made. They're probably one of the more popular American made companies. And yeah, I would contact them and ask them if they have any used. The platform's called the S2 Plus. That's the drone platform that's in the commercial market or the consumer market. Sorry. But unfortunately, they stopped selling their consumer platforms last year. So it's really unfortunate because that was like the example that we would reference to everybody. It's like, you want an American made platform, we're going to shoot you over to Skydio because they have a really good platform. The only downside is the cost. It's twice as expensive as this Chinese counterpart here that has the same capabilities. But
There's a ton
yeah.
on eBay.
Is there any
Okay.
other
Yeah, you can go on
countries
eBay.
besides China? Is there any other country besides China where you can get decent drones?
That's a good question. I mean, mainly all of these drones. Like if you go on Amazon and you just search up drone, you'll get hundreds of different platforms. Those are all coming from China. I think China is like the #1 leading drone manufacturer, and yeah,
it's like
80% of the
80%
market right now
I
is
think
For consumers, you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think parrots. I think you can get some parrot drones still.
Oh yeah, Parrot
drones you might be
is
able to
another
get.
company.
EXO or Parrot or
Yeah.
Skydio.
EXO,
Yeah.
Parrot, and Skydio, but Skydio you might have to get something aftermarket on eBay or something like that.
Okay. What was my other question? I got two other questions. Oh, one was, so where do regulations stand now? Do you guys, are things regulated that shouldn't be or vice versa? Are things legal or that should or shouldn't be or vice versa? If knowing what you know about the technology and knowing what you know about the laws and the regulations, where has it been done well and where have they gotten it wrong so far?
So, if you guys want to chip in on
I was
this
saying,
one
I
too,
think the US is kind of behind on regulations. There are definitely other countries that are more advanced in their regulations.
like Europe, for
In
example.
Europe, yeah.
Well, so what are they doing that you consider good that we're not doing?
I believe they're BV loss,
beyond visual
regulations. So that's like beyond visual line of sight. So that's flying beyond your visual line of sight. So there's some European that like they're allowing that in their countries for that beyond visual line of sight.
But they're allowing that because there's a technology to go with it, or you think it's just an unnecessary, inappropriate restriction that we don't allow it with the same technology?
That is a good question.
I think the FAA, I don't think the FAA really knows 100% yet how to handle unmanned systems. They're still in the process of all the legislation and the policies and the procedures.
Right now, there's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
And this technology is moving very fast, and the FAA is not working as fast as the technology is advancing.
Yeah.
So that's why we seem to be falling behind in certain aspects of it.
Okay, and then my last question was, okay, since this is an evolving space, is there industry segment or companies or however that are good investment opportunities?
We are not investment advisors.
Yeah, we can't give you any investment advice.
It's hard to tell because, like I said, we've seen some really great drones being made, and then they went out of business, which is really sad. So it's hard to tell, but we really hope that the legislation will get on board, and some of the funding that the government is putting forth will really help some of these technologies to move forward.
Yeah.
Well, these companies that you mentioned, and the consumer side, EXO and Parrot, the other one, are these all private companies, or is anybody public?
Skydio, I believe. I don't know the answer to that, but like if you look them up, like Skydio or EXO or Parrot, I know Skydio is really moving into the public safety market. It seems like there's been a big push for that. So Skydio is really kind of one of the biggest ones right now that is advancing in public safety.
It's more government,
and
more
government
military.
stuff because there is if you look up the I think it's called the cleared. Was it the cleared UAS?
The DIU blue
Yeah,
list
DIU
of
blue
drones.
list.
Blue UAS.
Blue UAS list. That would give you the list of the companies that have drones that are cleared to be used in government, military, and public safety.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought of a last question. So I know, I just on the military side, I'm sure, but I know it's been in the news that Ukraine has been making their own drones. So is there anything with the drone technology that they're doing that's innovative and integrating with the U.S. drone system, or is it just the only thing that's noteworthy is simply the fact that they're able to make drones at all, but their drones are no different or no more special than what we're making here?
Yeah, I wouldn't say their drones are any more special. They're just cheap parts. That's kind of if that's one thing that's Ukraine and everything happening overseas has done to our drone industry, it's kind of opened everybody up to using 3D printers, making really cheap drone parts, and making it kind of widely available. But there's no real difference between what Ukraine's doing and what we have over here.
Right.
They're just able to really use all those cheap components to make cheap drones, and I mean usually their drones are all going one way anyway, so there's no reason to an expensive piece of equipment. So so yeah, that's just kind of the use case they're using them for. But the whole FPV drone, one-way drone, it's kind of really exploded. It's interesting how it affects our drone industry, what we're doing in the States here, because it's
no pun intended there, right?
Yeah, no pun intended, but it's definitely opened up everybody's eyes. It's like, okay, it's like a a really cheap piece of equipment that can do a lot of damage. So it's like you have aspects from like the safety side where it's like this is kind of this is a a really big hazard if somebody gets their hands on this technology that's really accessible. This isn't good. And then you also have it from the manufacturing side where it's like we can do a lot of things with not a lot of material or very cheap material. So it is really interesting how it is affecting the drone industry here. It's really opened up. I think it's opened up a lot of companies' eyes. It's like, okay, we can we can do a lot with maybe less than we really originally expected.
Right. I mean, it seems to me the analog. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Is that what's impressive is that it's manufacturing in wartime conditions. It's not that it's the technology itself, but it sounds like the analog you're making is kind of like between OpenAI and DeepSeek, where
Yep.
DeepSeek isn't quite as good as OpenAI, but they did it for like 1% of the cost
Yeah.
with some innovation. And so Ukraine's finding ways to get almost the same result, but with much more limited infrastructure. And I guess you're saying that's the lesson learned that the broader industry is taking from what they're doing.
Yep.
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Just about running out of time. Marcia or Stephen, Scott, I know you've got some problems with the audio, but does Marcia or Stephen, do you all have any questions? Because we're just about ready to
Well, I
call
think
it.
they covered a lot of ground there. No pun intended again, but it was very good. I mean, it's really something for all of us to look at as it's coming, developing and progressing.
Yeah.
I liked it very much. It was very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't
very
have any, I don't have any
much.
questions, Georgia.
Oh,
Great
you don't have any
presentation though.
questions? Okay.
No.
Well, then I have a couple of announcements, if I may. Next month, aviation airport activities, we're looking at one of three possible events, either a tour of Duty Free America, a trip to the Udvar-Hazy Center if they have an exhibit we can watch, or seeing if we can go to the firing range presentation tour at Dulles. However, in April, I haven't brought this up with Scott yet, but the Greater Washington Business Aviation Association is holding their big event at Atlantic Aviation, and it's on April the 23rd from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And they'll have 6 very high-end private jets there. It's an amazing opportunity to tour these private jets, and they usually have a number of food vendors there, and I think it's like a $35 fee to get in. It's really wonderful, and so I'll send that out to everyone that's in attendance today. And finally, we have our Committee for Dulles United Luncheon on March 27th at 1757 Golf Club. That's right near Wegmans in Ashburn area, right near Dulles. And it's from 11:30 to 2. So I want to thank all of you for being here. Please accept our appreciation for the team at Xelevate. Lisa, thank you so much. Colin, Jack, thank you all. And it was great seeing everyone today.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks
thank you
for
so
having
much.
us, Georgia.
Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.